Wow. That reads like a novel. It's sorry that happened to you. It's happened to your son. Now, there's going to be some out there that, will take a more authoritarian approach. And I respectfully disagree with my fellow American citizens out there that love authority and love hierarchy structures. I don't. All right. I don't believe that this country was set up that way. We have a distributed power structure in this country. We have a Bill of Rights. It makes us unique in the world. We're on the forefront of human evolution of thought, of things that may have developed in Europe, but to a point. We're brash as a people, and we don't have a problem experimenting with this notion of freedom. Now we're losing it because we have yahoos on both sides of the political spectrum that are drowning out any kind of reasonable discussion about the proper function of government and freedom and liberty and what that entails. So I'm not an authoritarian, but anybody that spends enough time on my page understands that. I'm a civil libertarian. And I just don't believe that controlling another human being is the proper way to live ever. And in this particular situation, I also look at causation. And this entire situation could have been stopped with the authoritarian attitude of the teacher over freaking popcorn. There's just a different way to handle that. But to sit there and bow up and get into a teenager's face, I'm sorry, but what do you think is going to happen? I've seen Back to the Future, and it just sort of reminds me of Biff. Bullying people and then, grabbing McFly's arm and twisting it behind his back. Well, what do you think is going to happen? Well, Biff got clocked. So, these things happen. You don't put yourself in a situation where you limit human options down to fight or flight. And then you remove the flight capability because you're holding on to the person. You're only left with one option when you're dealing with escalated human emotions and human behavior. And so, yes, I hold the adult responsible. I hold the adult responsible. Kids are dysregulated. All of them. But then you add diagnostics on top of it. Then you add the complexity that must be weighed and not ignored. So, once again, those of you out there that love discipline, love authority, love telling other humans what to do, then maybe you just need to cut this off now. Or you can write me, hate comments. It doesn't bother me. I'm used to it. I have a very short list of people on my Christmas card, or that I'm on their Christmas card list. So, it just doesn't bother me. Okay, in your situation, let's answer your questions. What happens at this meeting? I don't know which meeting you're talking about. The meeting has been postponed due to the schedule conflicts. You hired a special education attorney. I don't know what's been filed. And I don't know what a DASA report is. That's the thing. And you'll have to excuse me. I mean, I think you said you're in New York State. If I remember correctly, but your child doesn't have an IEP. So the first question, I really don't know what you're referring to, but your child hasn't been in school since November due to this event and due to your child's injuries and your not wanting to sit him back until this is sort of resolved. So let's move on down. Can they kick my son out of school? And then what happens? They can't kick him out. We have compulsory education laws, and why would they kick him out? What did he do? I mean, he didn't cause serious bodily injury to the teacher. All he did was hit the teacher, and that's not the same thing. All right? The teacher caused serious bodily injury to your child. You see? So, no, I don't see them kicking your son out. Now, but then this is where you have the force of the screw-ups by the public school, and so your special education lawyer should know this already. But can you still file for an IEP? Absolutely. And see, this is where them telling you, well, your son's, too smart, or your son's this. Well, no, you have diagnosis, and your child is repeating the 7th grade. That right there, why is your child repeating the 7th grade? That would sort of tell me that there might be some underlying issues with regards to educational performance areas, from academic, social, emotional development, that might include behavior and communication. So in that regard, my big question, if I was representing you, would be, why didn't he have an IEP? Because the school system has what's called a child find, FIND, child find responsibility, both under 504 and under IDEA, which is special education. They're to locate, they're to evaluate, and they are to identify children. That includes kids that are homeschooled, private schooled, migrant, live under rocks, might be homeless. They're supposed to find any child within their geographic boundary that may have a disability and may need accommodations, or may be in need of specialized instruction, which would be the IEP. And they didn't do that. What they said was, they eyeballed and go, he doesn't need it. He's too smart, he's progressing. No, that's not how this works. And so you got him right there. I mean, I would hit him with a child find. And then their responses to your son, I would just sort of build into that. I would start here, though, because all of this leads up to that causation of the teacher's responses to your child. And then it would have gone back to, if they would have identified your child, they would have known X, Y, and Z about him. If they would have provided him a 504 or an IEP, then perhaps this would not have happened. And so I always back it up. And I believe you're going to have a 2-year statute of limitations, so I would absolutely go back in order to go forward. And I would put immense pressure on them on that point, that this was preventable, because they failed as an institution prior to that. And then put idiot and jackass in charge of your child, who quite frankly probably needs a plan himself, and doesn't need to be employed in working around kids. If you can't control your own emotions when you're working around children, you shouldn't work around kids. There's plenty of other jobs out there. You can sit there and be banging rock, for a construction company, and get mad as hell if you want to. But, teaching isn't the place for you if you can't sit there and keep yourself cool and collected. Because anybody who has kids will know that your kids will absolutely drive you insane. But it's your responsibility as the adult to be the adult, and not sit there and bow up to a 13-year-old. Jesus Christ. Okay. Can you call CPS? Well, yeah, you can, and they are mandatory reporters, and there's punishment for them not reporting themselves to sit there and investigate the situation. But many of them will sit there and say, well, but the CPS will turn around, and many of them will sit there and say, well, the police investigated, and the police didn't find anything. And that's unfortunate. But that doesn't mean that you don't go up the chain to the DA. You don't go up to the chain, and because every one of these people can sit there and trigger mechanisms to bypass what I consider a non-neutral review, because you have a police officer either paid for completely or partially paid for through the school budget, acting as the SRO officer for the school, that probably knows this teacher or knows the principal and knows the superintendent, and then you've lost your neutral review because this person's on the take. I mean, that there's no neutral hat there when you have an SRO officer paid by the very institution that they're in charge of investigating, and then working every day with these people. No, they don't want to be on their bad side. They're human beings too, police officers, believe it or not. I mean, I know they act superhuman, but no. They're influenced by, popularity contests too, and whose bad side they don't want to get on. Anything else someone has experience or knowledge in this type of situation? I mean, I would go after the IEP. I would request a referral meeting for both 504 and an IEP, or for eligibility for an IEP. Hand them the diagnosis. I would go ahead and start writing a CPS on this, and why at least it wasn't reported, because they don't get some kind of exception or exclusion for not reporting themselves in situations like this. Well, keep me updated. I think you asked this a few weeks ago. So, update us. Hopefully your son's a lot better, and hopefully he didn't suffer a traumatic brain injury from something like this. Something like that can have a lot of hidden effects that we don't necessarily know about.